Hello there, thanks for joining us on Joy News today. In this hour, minority in Parliament resolves to approve Chief Justice nominee Gertrude Torkornoo despite slamming her and the judiciary for their judgment in the controversial case involving their colleague James Gyakye Quayson. We'll get you updates shortly. Also, President Akufo-Addo points to some difficulties in controlling the influx of refugees from neighboring countries to Ghana as he admits some of the terrorists may have entered into the country.
Plus, we're both on our northwest border as well as on our northeast border. A lot of people coming in, and you can be sure that some of them belong to these terrorist groupings.
We have an update on the situation for you. Also, traffic situation worsens on the Dawenya-Accra Road owing to slow pace of work. We'll hear from motorist traders and some residents who say the situation is affecting their livelihoods. Also this afternoon, the AG is reviewing draft papers on the operations and maintenance contract between the Tema Oil Refinery and private investment companies aimed towards revamping the only state refinery. We have this and more coming up your way, plus business and more in the next hour. Stay tuned. Well, let's start off with the president, because President Akufo-Addo is admitting to some difficulties in controlling the influx of refugees fleeing the conflict in neighboring Burkina Faso into Ghana. More worrying for the president is the admission that some terrorists operating in the region may have entered into the country already. Interacting with foreign ministers from Belgium, Netherlands and Luxembourg, the president indicated that maintaining a firm grip on the situation remains his priority. Meanwhile, the government is hopeful that diplomatic interventions will succeed in bringing Russia and Ukraine to the negotiating table after prolonged fighting between both countries. Ghana's Foreign Affairs Minister Shirley Ayokor-Botchwey, who's hosting her counterparts from Benelux countries, says the countries such as Ghana continue to reel under the impact of the war and its global effect. Hence, the need for a quick fix to the regional security challenge. This came up at a news conference organized by her ministry.
Together, we also strive to uphold our values, not just within our own borders, but clearly also on the global stage. And in the face of the current geopolitical challenges, these values hold ever greater significance to all of us. We recognize and discuss the serious challenges Ghana faces itself, such as the growing instability in the Sahel region and the potential spillover of violent extremism to coastal West Africa, as the minister just articulated. And during our recent discussions, we gained a deeper understanding by both of the ministers of the issues confronting Ghana. In Europe, of course, we are witnessing the grim consequences of Russia's unwarranted and illegal invasion in Ukraine, which has led to a truly devastating war. And I want to express our heartfelt gratitude to Ghana and its people for its unwavering support in the fight against this aggression and its commitment to upholding multilateralism and international law.
We had 4 votes, 4 resolutions in the UN in New York, and every time Ghana was on the right side. So thank you very much for this. And secondly, I want to explain, this is not a conventional war where 2 countries are fighting each other. It is an aggression of Russia against Ukraine. And this is very, very difficult from what we saw maybe conventionally if 2 countries are in a war. Here, there are not 2 countries in a war. there is one country that aggressed against all the rules of the UN Charter, a neighborhood country called Ukraine. And the fight is not a fight against this country alone. It is a fight from Putin against democracy, against rule of law, against our values, values that we share here in Africa, in Ghana, and also in the European Union. And therefore, we have to do everything possible.
Meanwhile, the government of Ghana is hopeful that the diplomatic interventions will succeed in bringing Russia and Ukraine to the negotiation table after prolonged fighting between both countries. Shirley Ayokoboche is Minister for Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration.
We had very fruitful discussions, acknowledged the long-standing relations between Ghana and the Benelux countries, and we lauded the shared efforts to expand the spheres of cooperation at both the bilateral and also the multilateral fronts. We talked and had discussions on regional security, and we acknowledged the contributions by the Benelux countries to peace and security in the Sahel and the West African sub-region. In this regard, the Minister for National Security and I briefed our guests on the security situation in the region and measures being taken by member states of the Accra Initiative, as well as the level of ECOWAS and AU to address terrorism and violent extremist activities in the sub-region to restore normalcy to the affected countries. The ministers pledged their support to the Accra Initiative in that regard, and the two sides also agreed to work together at the multilateral level to address the challenges such as food insecurity, climate change, among others, that confront the world today as a result of COVID-19 and also the Russian-Ukraine war. On the Russian-Ukraine war, we reiterated the condemnation of the invasion of Ukraine by Russia and acknowledged the impact of the war on our economies. We reiterated our unwavering support as a country for Ukraine in line with its commitment to uphold the UN Charter, as well as the respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of UN member states. And we expressed the hope that diplomatic interventions will succeed in bringing the two warring parties to the negotiating table eventually to end the war.
Let's take you to Parliament now, because the minority in Parliament say despite their strong disagreement with the Supreme Court in their judgment annulling the election of James Dachi-Kwesi, they will not block the approval of Chief Justice nominee Gertrude Tugunu. Justice Tugunu was part of the 7-member panel which decided the case. The minority had insisted no decision will be taken on her nomination until the full judgment in the case was out. Speaking on behalf of the minority in Parliament, MP for Boku Central, Mahama Yariga, explained that despite their strong disagreement with the Chief Justice nominee, they believe she's qualified to be Chief Justice.
The Chief Justice nominee, Justice Gertrude Araba Esaba Tokono, would be true to her publicly professed textualist approach to constitutional interpretation. Whilst the clear language of the Constitution was dealing with qualification to be a member of Parliament, the Supreme Court veered off and was dealing with eligibility or qualification of a person to contest as a member of Parliament. I'm quoting the Supreme Court directly in their reasoning. They actually used that. They said, we are dealing with eligibility or qualification of a person to contest as a member of Parliament. But the Supreme Court talks about qualification to be a member of Parliament. It is after the contest that you then get sworn in to be a member of Parliament. Article 94 is not talking about eligibility to contest elections. It is about becoming a member of Parliament. This only takes place at the point of swearing in. Instead of fidelity to the text of the Constitution, which the CJ nominee professed as a preferred approach to constitutional interpretation, she succumbed to what we believe was a flawed precedent set earlier by the Supreme Court in the ex parte Zaneto case. That is the Republic versus High Court, General Jurisdiction, Accra, Expertise, Senator Rollins, Ashite, and National Democratic Congress Interested Parties, number 2 of 2015 to 2016, 1 Supreme Court Ghana Law Report, page 92, which this current court relied on, was wrongly decided by an earlier panel of the Supreme Court. The senator would have been qualified anyway if the Supreme Court was to conclude that Article 94 deals with qualification to be a member of Parliament. She would have been qualified anyway if they had adopted the position that we're adopting today, and not eligibility to contest elections to be a member of Parliament, which was what was in issue in the senator case. In the senator case, it was eligibility to contest, because the matter was before the contest. If even we admit that there should be some housekeeping matters at the point of filing nomination papers, that should be the appropriate province of legislation and not judicial enactment. What they did was to enact laws, the Supreme Court, not to interpret the text of the Constitution of Ghana. James Jachikwesin is gearing up to contest the by-election in Asin North, which has been brought about by the Supreme Court's decision. In that regard, we, the members of the Appointments Committee representing the National Democratic Congress, NDC, will not withhold our approval of the Chief Justice nominee by consensus. We will not withhold our approval of her by consensus. Her CV reveals a person of considerable experience, having served as a judge from the High Court to the Court of Appeal and ultimately at the Supreme Court. Women who have acquitted themselves should be given opportunities to occupy key national offices. Even as we disagree with her jurisprudence, we find her qualified to occupy the high office of Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana.
And since this very green light was given, things have moved fast as we speak. A valedictory ceremony is being held for James Doche, Justice, who was acting in the stead of Justice Anini Yeboah. As we speak now, we're expecting the Chief Justice nominee, Gertrude Tokonu, to make a public appearance after this press statement by the minority in Parliament. Let's get more on this. Legal Affairs correspondent Joseph Akable is joining us live with details on this. Joe, what more can you report? We'll get Joseph Blay for you shortly, but in your shots now, you have some justices of the Supreme Court. We can listen in.
Speak to you, especially from where I'm sitting. You must each find in your life and space a man or woman who can command you on major decisions of your life. For those who have been wondering and still wondering why I left, by the grace of God, a reasonably thriving life at the bar and took what I call an oath of poverty and service, that reason is my Lord Justice Doche. He commanded me. And I do not have an iota of regret that I obeyed. My Lord, thank you for commanding me. And to date, in private conversations, I still address him as Papa, but he addresses me, since I became a judge, as my brother. And it just tells you the unique character of my Lord. Papa, I'm extremely grateful. You have impacted me in a way that none has done before. And as for the life on the court, the things that have been said, bear that out. My Lord, but because I have the privilege of knowing you that closely, I think that my word of acknowledgement will be incomplete if I didn't add, apart from God, your own source of strength, of encouragement, and moderation which is Mrs. Sylvia Doche. Mommy, thank you. Because what a lot of us take for granted is that my Lord goes home burdened and troubled and worried and anxious sometimes. And it is Mommy who decompresses him.
That's right. That's right.
Yes, I'm saying this on authority. and makes him the good man that he is, who has so touched, mentored, influenced, and guided most of us. I have told him that I've prayed away this day. I never wished that this day was going to come. I don't know what his plans are and who he will entrust me to. Otherwise, I feel really orphaned on this side of the court. And the reason also is that, for those of you who know me, I'm not a hawk, but I'm very stubborn in my views. And my Lord Justice Doche is one of the few exceptional and extraordinary people who has a very unique way of saying, and it's not pretentious, it's just genuine. He tells you yes, but if you are discerning, the yes can mean a no. And so I'll miss your guidance. But as a lot of us have said, I have been looking for allies to conspire how we can prevent him from relocating to Pando.
Well, Justice Yoni Kolendi, just gone by in your shots there, eulogizing James Doche, who was acting as Chief Justice. Now we'll see Gertrude Tokuno if all is set and the presidential inauguration is done. Obviously, we'll see her as the next Chief Justice. But we can get a lot more on this story as the minority is also giving their green light. Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante is joining us right from the House with more on the demands by the minority. So quickly, you've asked the minority leadership why they're going ahead to approve her despite the disagreement with this latest judgment on James Jachikwesi. Are you getting any response on this?
So, well, yes, they say that Chief Justice nominated through the Sabat Chokuno is duly qualified, and that if you look at the CV, there's a lot that she has done that puts her in a position to be able to deliver as Chief Justice, despite their strong disagreement with her decision in the James Jachikwesi case. And so despite all this serious disagreement they have with her, they are giving this green light that will make sure that this approval will move through. Of course, it wouldn't have meant much, really, even if the minority said they were not going to approve her. The minority did not have the numbers. And if it did go to a vote, they would have lost. Even what we have seen in recent times, they would have lost. So they have now given their all clear, which simply, what they have simply done is to smoothen the process a little bit. It means that a secret vote will not be required, and that all that will be required will be a voice vote when the report is laid for her approval or otherwise. So that will be the significant position. If you look at today's business statement that we've just secured copies of, and very soon they will be moving to deal with this, what we understand is that this report will be taken today. The story we've just done is Justice Jones Doche, the acting Chief Justice, retiring. It means that the baton will go on to the next most senior judge to become the acting Chief Justice until a confirmation is sought. And that is not so tidy. That is what the government wants to avoid. They do not want the baton being passed on every now and then when the most senior judge retires, it has to go on. You need a substantive Chief Justice, and that is why the President has nominated Justice Gertrude Tokuno. And so very, very, very soon, any moment from now, when the Speaker of Parliament gets in, we expect that the report of the committee will now be laid, will now be amended to reflect the new minority position that they approve of Gertrude Tokuno's nomination. It will be now by consensus, and then the report will be laid, it will be debated, and then a voice vote will be taken, and then the Chief Justice nominee will be approved or otherwise if the vote boy says so. But normally, when this is consensus, the approval is set, and the President can this evening or early tomorrow swear in Justice Gertrude Tokuno as Chief Justice.
Any reaction from the majority side yet?
We expect the majority side, the majority leader himself, to hold a news conference any moment from now. The understanding we had was that the majority Justice H.M. was just about to address a press conference that has stalled for some moments now. We understand they have to do some background talks, among other things. They will come in and give us a certain idea of how the process will unravel. Normally, because it's going to be by consensus, there's no fear of a rejection. And so as soon as this majority press conference is out of the way, we expect that the Speaker of Parliament will come in, gavel the House in session, and the report of the Appointments Committee will now be taken and approval may be granted.
And we'll be back to the issue about the Chief Justice nominee shortly, but they've been addressing issues also regarding the World Bank country director's comments on the deals with the independent power producers. Any update on that? And what's the concern, really, of the minority side?
So, Mr. Pierre Laporte, the country director of World Bank, has stirred considerable controversy since his interview with George Duffy, where he said that part of the reason why the economy is struggling currently, where government finances is in shambles, is due to some of the take-or-pay contracts that were signed by the erstwhile John Dramani Mahama government. The minority have been wading in, and according to John Tinapor, who's the former deputy power minister and currently the ranking member on the Mines and Energy Committee, Mr. Pierre Laporte is getting himself muddied in local politics, and that if he got his facts right, he would not have made some of the comments he made. They insist that none of the contracts that were signed by the erstwhile John Mahama government can be blamed for the current economic challenges, and that the current economic difficulty is simply down to government mismanagement and overspending, and that Pierre Laporte and government assigns should not seek to put this in the basket of the former President John Dramani Mahama, and that he did his best when he signed all these arrangements. And so they've been fighting back. They've rather been insisting that the majority side, the government side, have actually extended some of these contracts. And if they were making the argument that some of these contracts were bad, when the contracts expired, they should have just let them go. But they have extended some for 15 years, and so they cannot keep blaming for.
And quickly, if you can hear me, we know that the House is resuming after recess. Any other activities expected on the floor? What will happen, I mean, on day one after recess? Kwegu, I was just asking about, Parliament returning from recess. Quite a lot of activities tabled before the House, correct? Can you update us on some of them? Okay.
Yes, the agenda is a bit light today. If you look at the first day of Parliament resuming, it's a little bit light. What we expect that once the report of the Appointments Committee on Justice Gertrude Sabat-Sokono is dealt with, the House may take adjournment and come in tomorrow.
Kwegu Asante there from Parliament, and we'll be monitoring that exercise, the approval of the report that will pave way for the appointment of Chief Justice nominee Gertrude Tokono as the substantive CJ for the lawmaking chamber. We'll still keep our eyes there as we're expecting her to appear and make a public statement as the acting Justice Jones Doche will be retiring in a few days from now. We'll keep watching that space and bring you updates. But about 100 victims of the local violence are currently seeking refuge at Junga and other communities in the West Mamprusi and Manduri district of the Northeast region. According to the victims, the attackers burnt down their household and looted their properties, including money, food items, and livestock. Speaking at a press conference in Junga, the Welfare Committee of the so traditional area appealed to National Disaster Management Organization to support displaced victims. There's more in this report by correspondent Ilyasu Tanko.
Shaibu Isahaku is a resident of Lukula and a teacher staying in Tamale. He was not in Lukula last Thursday dawn when heavily armed militia suspected to have come from the Gonjaland attacked the community and destroyed properties after chasing out the inhabitants. His wife, children and other relatives, however, were there when the attack occurred. Forced to flee the community, according to Shaibu, his relatives walked several kilometers across the White Volta River to seek refuge at Janga, the traditional capital of the sole paramountcy of the Mampurgu traditional area. He recounts the destruction caused by the suspected Gonja bandits. A lot of properties were damaged. We cannot describe the extent of the damage. Food items, roofing sheet and stores have been razed down. They looted our livestock. They left nothing behind. Everything burned. Shaibu's relative is among the over 100 Mamprosis who fled the Lukula community to safety in Janga and other Mamprosi villages in the West Mamprosi municipality and the Mamprogo Mwaduri district of the Northeast region. The displaced Mamprosis are currently living with and being provided for by family and friends. Most of them, however, are being taken care of the paramount chief of the traditional area, Malguna Nantogma Seidu. Like Shaibu's family, the victims said all their properties have completely been destroyed and appealed to NADMO to come to their aid. So we are here to plead to the Ghanaian public, benevolent outfits, the government and NADMO to come to our rescue. Thursday's violence in Lukula was said to have been triggered by the attempts of the Gonja paramount chief in Daboya in the North Gonja district of the Savannah region, the Wasipewura, to install a rival chief in the community against a recommendation of both by the Savannah and the Northeast Regional Security Councils. For many decades, the Lukula village and several others, including Mankargu, have been the epicenter of violence between Mamprosi and Tampuluma settlers on one side and Gonja occupiers on the other.
Moving on, experts in the extractive industry are warning of grave consequences if Ghana goes ahead to extract bauxite in the Tiwa forest. It's been estimated that 1.7 trillion will be spent in 2023 on clean technologies due to the drastic spike in the demand for metals and minerals worldwide. This has raised concerns among environmentalists, civil society and industry about the need to decarbonize the process of extraction. Co-chair of the Ghana Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, Dr. Steve Manteo, is warning any attempt by government to degrade the Tiwa forest will not augur well for the country. We'll be bringing you some updates on that, but now there's a bit of an update for you on the Chief Justice nominee, Gertrude Tokono. She's speaking at that valedictory ceremony held in honor of James Doche. Justice was acting upon that green light coming through from the minority. We can listen in.
I've served on our nation's highest court. One only has to glance through the profile of His Lordship Victor Jones Mawulong Doche, and the Victor comes first, and catch a glimpse of how he spends his time to appreciate the true jewel that he is. To his family, to his people, the Church of God, the judiciary, and the judicial service of Ghana, and to this nation. As I have reflected on today's occasion and its essence, my mind has often gone to how true treasures are formed and obtained. Gold and diamonds are not to be found easily. They are hidden in the womb of the earth for man to strive to bring to himself. Oil, we are told, forms deep in rocks over millions of years and may be gathered only at great cost. And God, in His infinite wisdom, gives us the treasures of beautiful humanity, such as His Lordship Victor Jones Mawulong Doche, after God Himself has done the work of shaping them in the quiet of home, faith, and community, away from the eyes of those who receive the gift of their character and their labor. This morning, in all humility, I'd like to assure His Lordship Justice Doche and the Lord our God, who gave us this precious man, that as an institution and community, the judicial service and the judiciary truly appreciate the gift of the man and the gift of grace that he is. In 2020, I had the opportunity of interviewing Justice Doche for a special feature in The Bench, the annual journal of the Association of Magistrates and Judges of Ghana. and I came away with a deeper view of the influences that have shaped his passion for fairness, justice, service, and worship. And we saw him dance in worship a few minutes ago. He told the bench about how he lost his father early in life, the injustices his family suffered, and the struggles of his widowed mother to look after him and his brothers. It was an eye-opener that allowed understanding for his deep passion for social and substantial justice, and his philanthropy and service to every group that he belongs to. He also told us about following his mother to choir practice, and this explains his exuberant love for hymns and dancing. We are told that, like all God-made treasures, the birth of a pearl takes time. It occurs when an irritant, such as sand, gets into the shell of an oyster. In response to the pain, the oyster produces a protective coating called nacre to fit between the two shells and protect it from the destructive influences of the irritant. Over a period spanning 6 months to 4 years, these layers of nacre released to coat the irritant and protect the oyster and its shell form the beautiful gem and stunning beauties of the pearl. As beneficiaries of this process, human beings enjoy the adornment and grace of pearls, not knowing how much it costs the oyster in quiet pain, strain, endeavor, and fighting effort to give us that treasure. The philanthropy experienced by Justice Doche's communities, the passion for service that we have enjoyed in the judiciary, through the never-ending list of councils and committees that he serves on, and the fearless quest for substantial justice that rises out of the pages of the innumerable rulings and judgments that he has authored, speak volumes of his courageous response to irritations of life, such as oppression of orphans, deprivation of vulnerable women, the looting of state coffers, and abuse of public office. One only has to encounter his desperate quest to overcome abuse with justice in decisions such as Board of Governors Achimota School versus Ni Akunote II, Platinum Equities Limited and Lands Commission, judgment dated 20th May 2020, and Martin Alamisi Amidu versus Attorney General, Waterville Holders BVI Limited and Alfred Agbesi Woyome, judgment dated 14 June 2013, to understand the fighter for justice for the deprived in the nation, in Justice Doche. A champion of women and the vulnerable, the determination to break the tide of bullying and compel compliance with the spirit of the law and the Constitution is easily seen in his groundbreaking and incisive opinions in Gregory versus Tandor IV and Hansen, judgment delivered on 12 May 2010, and the second Mensah versus Mensah, judgment dated 22nd February 2012, that we have heard of this morning. My Lord, in Gregory versus Tandor IV versus Hansen, you began your lead opinion with a famous quotation from William Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, a quote you had expressed in your earlier decision in the case of Clement versus Eniete, judgment dated 4th June 2008, one of your very early judgments in the High Court 2nd D, when you started to establish yourself as a clear-minded judge who not only presided over cases, but did so independently as a fierce contender for rights, and one who is not afraid to find the kernel of truth within the law, so as to give not just the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law. These are the famous words from Act 4, Scene 3 in Julius Caesar. There is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the floods, leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyages of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat. We must take the current when it serves or lose our ventures. Unquote. It is in the spirit of seizing for Ghana the moment for establishing just parameters for what I will describe as the difficult to define relationship called marriage, that you opine that, quote, the time has come for this court to institutionalize the principle of jurisprudence of equality in the sharing of marital property after divorce, of all properties acquired during the subsistence of a marriage in appropriate cases, unquote. As a jurist, Justice Doche never failed to demand and apply what is not only legally correct, but what would produce a just outcome and a level playing field for all, high and low, rich and poor leadership. In the few years that I've had the privilege and opportunity of working with him almost on a daily basis on this apex court, I have watched with admiration his keen and unflagging intelligence and alertness, his depth of preparation, and the clarity and wisdom with which he leads and presides over panels, and the Supreme Court as President of the Supreme Court. These qualities have been deployed daily in the service of the nation, sometimes without the public noticing and appreciating. But he never took a day off from doing his best. He was not here for the applause. His was a commitment to his conscience, the law, and the good of the nation, as he saw best. If Ghana is to become the nation that it must be, we can only pray that there will be more like him as he takes a bow and leaves the bench today. Distinguished colleagues and guests, the attrition rate of the great and good from the Supreme Court this year leaves us all with great sadness. But I personally cannot help but feel almost orphaned by the situation as I prepare to serve this nation where their big shoes stood. To lose the help and wisdom of His Lordship Justice Victor Jones Maulom Doche, a proud son of Pando, a quintessential example of the beautiful pearl, at a time like this is a big blow, and I know that we shall all miss him very dearly. It is my prayer that our celebration of this distinguished jurist will carry on into our continued service through this institution, as we all strive to emulate his examples of good faith, patriotism, hard work, diligence, and devout faith, delivered with constant humor and wisdom through stories from Pando, Commonwealth Hall, and his journeys around the world. My Lord, we will miss your never-ending store of funny stories, told with the intention of teaching wisdom and grace, including how a man christened Victor has come to be known as Jones. We all wish you a pleasant and restful retirement. For over 4 decades, you have served the law, 23 years of which have been to the nation and its citizens. You have pursued the cause of justice and expanded freedom. You have made this nation safer and more secure. You have helped to build this democracy we are enjoying now. You absolutely deserve this rest, even though I know you will be too restless to enjoy it fully. Mama Sylvia, please get him to rest. I plead with you that however you continue to serve, please pace yourself and take time to enjoy the beautiful hills and waters of the Volta region. Thank you very much, my Lord Victor Jones Maulom Doche, for the service and for the example you are leaving us with. May the Lord continue to bless you with good health and strength of mind and body, and with the love and comfort of family.
And obviously, if you're married to an ever, you should pick up a few lines. Chief Justice nominee Gertrude Tokono there indicating how dearly she would miss the acting Chief Justice Jones Doche, but she's also been making some points about the high attrition rate of fine brains leaving the bench this year, and the fact that she will be filling very big shoes. We'll wait to see what next the Parliament, in terms of their decision, will take on her nomination and what the next steps will be. You're still watching Joy News today. Let's take you to some other stories, because residents, motorists and business owners along the Dawenya to Pumbaria area and the community on that stretch of Accra are raising concerns about the road which they are calling on government to complete. They have been raising some concerns over the years about the stretch and the traffic situation in the community. Government in June 2022 officially commenced the expansion of the 17-kilometer long Tema to Central University section of the N1 highway, expected to last for 18 months. We'll get the concerns of the residents shortly, but just a bit of a break once more. Let's hear from the acting Chief Justice, James Doche.
I promised my family I was not going to cry, so I will soldier on. All the good things have been said, but today is a day of showing appreciation. First of all, I want to show appreciation to Almighty God for His grace and mercy that has sustained me through my life's journey from Pando, Amfueta, Ho, Sekendi, and Accra until this day. In 2 days' time, I'll be 70 years old. I also appreciate my dear parents, Alex Kosi Doche and Victoria Kesia Doche, for bringing us up. They sowed the seed, nurtured it, and especially our mother, who had to endure the rash realities of a single mother when the woman died in 1969, when I was in secondary form 3. In those days, there was no intestate succession law. And I can say, I told the CJ designate has omitted certain parts of my interview. I will not go back to that interview. I also appreciate His Excellency President Kufuor, who gave me the opportunity upon the recommendation of the Bar Council. The Bar Council nominated myself, Justice Eni Yeboah, the former Chief Justice, Justice Mafosao, Justice Francis Kobier, and others to the High Court bench. The Bar Council again indicated that Justice Eni Yeboah and myself should go to the Court of Appeal straight away. Justice Redu said he was not going to allow anybody to come from the bench straight to Court of Appeal, but that if we distinguish ourselves within on the bench, he will elevate us. And to the goodness of God, we were sworn into the High Court on the 18th of June 2002, and on the 23rd of September 2003, Justice Eni Yeboah and myself were elevated to the Court of Appeal. And on the 11th of June 2008, Justices Rose Constance Owusu, myself, Justice Eni Yeboah, and Justice Paul Bafuboni were again elevated to the Supreme Court. I cannot help but say that if you find God, you have found everything. And if you lose God, you have lost everything in life. And if you put your faith in God's hands, you will see God's hands in everything that you do. I also appreciate the chiefs and people of Kwando, our paramount chief, Togwe Dagadu. I also appreciate the chief of my division, that's Kwando Aziavi, and then Kwando Chakwe, all the chiefs and elders. I also appreciate the chiefs and queen mothers of my mother's hometown, Amfueta. I appreciate the chiefs and queen mothers of Ho, where I went to do my national service in 1979 and ended up spending 23 years of my practicing life as a lawyer in Ho, and it was there that I found a beautiful wife, Sylvia. And I also recognize her family, the Ajima family from Abutia, for the support, and my sisters-in-law. Some of them are here from Kwetoe, and my in-laws. We have a very deep family connection in Kwando, such that one of our cousins, Mr. Frank Obed Mensah, he took charge of Mawena, my senior brother, about whom, if I want to speak, I can speak for the whole day, because Mawena was the one who nurtured me and planned my career path for me. If I write my memoirs in the next 1.5 years, I believe, I will point out the mess I would have found myself but for his direction and advice. I also recognize my junior brother, whom is called Seth, but we call him Seto. He's a retired banker. He's there right now, and his dear wife, my brother Mawena's wife, Sister Rosabel, is there. Sister Ivy, thank all of you very much. And I have a lot of children. Apart from my natural children, Mause, Seli, Selassie, I have other children, a lot of them, from the family. My house has been a home for all my brother's children. Essie, Josephine, Delali, Joan, Maulawe, our house help, who stayed with us for close to 25 years. And she was brought by her grandfather, who was a very good client of mine, and said, "Lawyer, take care of my granddaughter for me." And I will say that I've been fortunate in this life to have had very good friends. I met a group of people in Commonwealth Hall. We call ourselves the Boys. I see some of them at the back there. I can identify and recognize Lawyer Kweku Brenu, Smiley Bannerman. Wave so that they see you. And then, Judata, the Jude. Thank you. These are my very good friends, and we have kept our friendship from the university, as Professor Justice Kote said, from 73 up to 76 in some cases, and then 78 in others. We have kept our friendship, and I thank you all very much. Now, I want to appreciate my in-laws. I've mentioned Sister Rosabel, Sister Ivy. I also want to mention Sister Connie and Mama Trato, one of the queen mothers from Ho Dome. As Togwe Teprehodo said, he came to join us in the Attorney General's office in Ho at the time, before he was subsequently made the paramount chief of Amfuega. Is now the president of the Volta Region House of Chiefs. Togwe Ajayi, chief of Xavier traditional area. They are independent entities, so they are not appendage of any other town. Togwe, thank you very much. Now, as I stated, I was elevated in 2002, and it was Justice Wiredu who was then the Chief Justice. And soon after he was sick, Justice Akwa took over, and I had some very good working relationship with Justice Akwa because he was then the judge in Ho, and he was a very good and hardworking judge. So he gave me the opportunity. I served on many committees. Some of these committees were chaired by Mrs. Wood. That's how come I got to know Mrs. Wood very well. And so when she became Chief Justice, I really worked with her on a number of committees. And as you know, she was the longest Chief Justice of Ghana for 10 years. In fact, my career, I owe my career to my senior at the bar, Lawyer Armstrong Ametobla Akwaku of Betomevo Chambers, now deceased. It was then, whilst I was there, that I discovered Benson Unchukwe. He was in the 6th form at Morley School, and he and the son of Lawyer Akwaku were mates. And Benson started producing plays, and he invited myself and Lawyer Kwaku to watch some of those plays. And I told myself, this is a genius, and so he must be encouraged. And that's how come our friendship started, from he in the 6th form and to the university, and he became president of the Ghana Bar Association. The same recognition goes to Justice Gaiwu. I also met Justice Gaiwu when he was in the 6th form. He comes from the same town with my wife, and he was introduced to me by the father, and 7 days after, the father engaged me as his company solicitor. 7 days after that introduction, the father died. And I was faced with the problem of managing the estate for them as their legal advisor. All the rest, they say, is history. So he is also one of my younger brothers. In 2001, I was nominated by the Paul Edu Jamfi-led administration of the GBA to the Legal Service Board. So I served on the Legal Service Board. While serving there, I was elevated to the High Court, so I relinquished my position. And as you know, when I came to the bench, I worked with the current Attorney General as an ADR mediator. A case he was handling in the High Court was referred to me as an ADR mediator. That's how I got to know him. He was a young, but I could see that he was full of zeal, and he was very pushing, you know. Then I really admired him at that stage, and we became friends until now. I've also been privileged to be the chair of UHAS Council. The Vice Chancellor, Professor Lydia Ziato, has come to say some very good things about me, but I think I've not been all that pleasant, but she refused to say the bad things about me, because sometimes I can be very hard on her, but then, as I said, Ghanaians, we are very polite. We don't say bad things when the occasion demands. So, Prof, thank you very much. And Registrar, Amankwa Okuni, thank you for coming. And I also thank Professor John Japon, the immediate past Vice Chancellor. In 2021, I was also appointed as board chair of Accra Academy. And Accra Academy was the school I went to for my 6th form, also on the advice of my brother, Mawena. He was then in Legon, and he said, well, Jones, if you want to come to Legon with ease, then come to Accra Academy, 6th form. And to Accra Academy I went, and the result was fantastic. Thank you, Mawena, again.
And you want to call that a farewell message from Justice Jones Duchi. And that's all we have for you on Joy News today. Log on to myjoyonline.com. We have more stories for you there. My name is Blessed Sugan. Thanks for watching.